Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Biters. I'm Diane.
This is Brian, your zombified 30-something.
Oh, does that mean I have to say how old I am?
No, you don't.
So we're here to talk about episode 6 of season 6, and I can't believe we've only got 2 episodes left this year.
2 more to go, then we're going to have some free time. Kind of go a little crazy. I can focus. So here's me being the nerd. So my other podcast, 515 Fantasy Football, coincidentally, The Walking Dead gets over just as Fantasy Football is getting ready to focus on the playoff season for the championships.
Oh, how funny.
So it's
well, that's
good.
perfect.
Yeah, because I like to watch Sunday Night Football, and I'm kind of teeter-tottering back and forth between the stuff. So gives me a little bit of free time right at the right time that I need it.
That's good. Well, my friend and I are still trying to get our podcast up and running, and I think I'm going to have to learn how to edit. So,
Well, you have plenty of experience. I have experience of my own, so we will get you locked and loaded now.
So, I got to tell you, I am for the very first time ever wearing the hat of the disgruntled fan.
Yeah, I seen you made a post about that. I seen a lot of other people said that, and I was just kind of like, "What? What do you mean disgruntled? What's going on here?"
So this is going to be a good conversation because I got to tell you, I did not dig this episode.
Yeah, I like the little sneaky stuff. I like if it's going to be a filler episode.
Mm-hmm.
I like it to have a lot of little sneaky stuff in it because I appreciate that. And this episode had a ton of little sneaky tidbits on what's really happening.
Oh, I think there's some good comic book spoiling going on, and we'll probably talk more about that. But,
well, I do have a little workaround for that conundrum. Depending on how you want to take the show, if you want to just pretend the comics don't exist, so that way it's open and free to all, because the comic books aren't necessarily a roadmap, they're just a general theme of the TV show. So I've kind of thought about a workaround where I'll just drop keywords, and then if the comic book readers understand what I'm saying on key points, then they'll get it where we think we're going. But those who don't care about the comics and don't wish we think of things like that, they won't ever know. And for the record, I've already left this space in the comic books. I've completely stopped at this point because I want the show to go ahead without me. So I don't read too far and then kind of go, oh, I bet I know kind of what's coming. But I generally can see where this is going.
So I'm a little further in the comics than where we are in the series right now, but not terribly. But I definitely saw some things last night that were just brought up the comic books for me, so we'll talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
So just to let people know, I looked at numbers real quick. I think we're a little too early just in terms of having numbers up for this episode, but last week's Live Plus 3 was pretty cool. They actually added 4 million viewers in the DVR watching. So the Live Plus 3 numbers for last week's episode were 18.6 million, and Walking Dead was still number 1 in terms of viewership.
Yeah, I definitely think the DVR, I'm glad they're able to track that stuff accurately, because that's where so much traffic comes through and so much action comes through. And that's why I don't typically like those programs that record on a Sunday night. You know, there's a great benefit into waiting that extra day to kind of let everything absorb and let conversation happen and being able to watch it again. That's all good things that happen, and hopefully our listeners are going to appreciate that, especially this week.
This week it was definitely important for me to watch it a second time, and I've got to tell you that I've watched probably every episode at least twice, most of them more than twice, and I still struggled with this one. So, I know,
we're
crazy,
going to take care of this problem real quick.
Oh, and I apologize to everyone. Right now, one of my dogs is playing with her squeaky toy, and it's just me tonight, no husband, so hang on just a second here.
Get that dog a bizone.
All right,
Says,
so
Mama, let's do this. Come on.
yeah, exactly. All right, so it was called Always Accountable, and it was written by Heather Bellison. I looked her up, and it looks like she has several producer credits for The Walking Dead, and actually had written this episode, Them, and Self-Help, which was the other major Abraham-centric episode. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
She also wrote for Black Sails and Unforgettable.
Yeah, I like how they kind of do it with writers where not just any writer gets to write on any episode. There's very specific people who have a hand in developing certain characters. So when the show does tend to focus on one specific character or there is a turning point in their thought process, like there was tonight in a couple people, that is really dedicated to one writer so that way they get that transition correct.
I agree with you. I think that they really are absolutely taking advantage of people who know and really work on those characters.
She's like a bouncing on the bed over there.
No, now we couldn't enjoy one squeaky toy, so we're going to get the other one. My goodness. Everyone's going to get to know my dogs really well, and I apologize in advance. So I couldn't remember Them. Of course I remembered Self-Help, but I didn't have a chance to go back and look up Them. I know it was last season. Do you remember which one that was?
I have no idea. I mean, it doesn't ring
I
a bell
don't
at
either.
all.
I'm going to have to look it up on IMDb later, but if any of our listeners want to chime in, that would be a nice piece of info to get on the Facebook page or get via email. So then our writer was Jeffrey January, and he has a lot of Walking Dead credits. He has some credit for the movie Soul Surfer and credit for the movie Raise Your Voice, but I didn't really find a whole lot more about him.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Let me help. Are we ready? Are we at that point? Or you got one more?
Yeah, absolutely. So should we go ahead and get into it by talking about the title, or you want to just dive right into the goods, bads, and uglies?
Sure. Let's elaborate on the title a little bit. Go ahead. Give me your shot. Give me your take.
So I felt like there were a few things. You know, first of all, kind of Daryl as the good guy and him taking the insulin back to Tina. Always accountable, always being the good guy, which, you know, hasn't always been Daryl's story, but I think they're trying to make that his story more and more. I think the interplay between Abraham and Sasha, them lecturing each other about accountability and responsibility, we definitely get the title there. And then I think that the thing that really struck me is I don't think this group is always accountable, but I think they always pay for their decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. So you did hit the three ideas that I thought. You know, Daryl always being accountable for his actions. With, I think Daryl, it wasn't more so being responsible for his actions, but always being accountable for his thoughts. And that's where Daryl really gets himself into trouble, in my perspective, are his thoughts. Because he doesn't think about what he's doing. He thinks about how people are going to feel now. And he's got that sappy kind of corner on him. And it's really making me bonkers.
And, you know, I've got to tell you, and I've made no secret of it, I'm a big Daryl Dixon fan. I think he's a great addition to the show, even though he's not in the books. And I was really disappointed in this episode.
So frustrating. But I think the accountable, I think if I had to pick a person this was really titled for, I think it was really titled for Sasha.
Now that's funny because if I had to pick someone it was really entitled for, I would have picked Abraham.
Yeah, there's that direct correlation with how this plays, but everything happened because of Sasha in this show. They were in the position they were in because of her. They wrote Dixon on the door because of her. She's being accountable but responsible. She stepped in the mud to point Daryl in the right direction. So she knew everything she was doing and doing it for a reason. She was being accountable and responsible. So that's how I kind of define accountability as responsibility.
Interesting. And she was the most put together of anybody in the episode, which is a real departure for her.
Absolutely. When, he's like, we got to go find Daryl. No, stop. Hold on. You don't track a tracker. let the tracker come to you.
I thought that was a great line and a great observation. I'm glad you caught that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I have hated Sasha all the way up until right now. This episode was
Wow.
100% my turning point. Because if you think about accountable, about what she's been through, after the whole losing Tyrese,
Losing
losing Bob,
Bob. Yeah.
and how when they were first in the town and they were looking, and you remember when she was supposed to be watching over that cop that was actually from the hospital?
And she ended up getting smacked upside the head instead.
Yep. What's
Yeah.
your name? Bob. Oh my gosh.
Right.
All of these things helped mold who she was. And then when she finally snapped in Alexandria and she's talking to Abraham about, hey, I'm here just so you don't lose your crap, and I want to make sure you're all together. And she's like, I've already made peace with that.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was at the party, I was accountable there, and I laid with walkers and I had my moment. You're hiding your moment. You refuse to acknowledge, you refuse to be accountable. And I think that's where these people have always had this issue, is that they keep blaming others for the reason things are happening.
I'm just thinking that's such an interesting callback to Alexandria, and it's interesting that we had Spencer saying what he said last week about, Deanna being at fault and making everyone the way that they are, and then really our core group has the same character. They disguise it better.
Yeah. If I don't think people are or have been accountable up until, well, mainly for Sasha and Abraham. They are now. They get it. To hear Sasha explain it in the way she did, and she had the opportunity to gun down Father Gabriel for what he did.
Right.
And, she knew that this isn't how it needed to be. This isn't what she needed to do. And she is one of the only people who is 100% accountable for her actions and realizes the big picture. And I think she understands the karma of the show.
Yeah, I'm just kind of mentally ticking through our cast while you're talking, and I think about the only other person I can think of immediately who I would say is kind of on the same level would be Maggie.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. She understands the bigger picture now. She gets it.
And she's very clear and doesn't play games, and she's not pretending to be somebody she's not.
Very much so.
Makes me think of Carol. I mean, I love the character, and I think what they're doing is interesting, but she's still hiding.
Yeah, she is definitely hiding. I think that veil is going to be lifted sooner rather than later.
I do too.
But, maybe that's kind of the theme of the second half, is that people are just going to start understanding what's going on and figuring things out.
And so you talk about this as a turning point. That makes sense. So maybe we're going to head into the second half of the season with our characters actually being accountable instead of just paying for decisions that they made rashly.
Absolutely. It's going to happen. So what did you think about Dwight and what was the other girl's name?
So I don't think we ever got a name for the girl who survived. The girl who died was Tina. I think we're going to see them again, obviously. I think that, and I mean, here's a keyword from the comic books so people can just do what they will with it. I think they're definitely leading us into the storyline about the Saviors.
Yep.
I think that, them saying, we earned what we took, we earned everything that we took, that's very much in keeping with what you see from that camp of people, that belief that you have to earn everything. And then also the suggestion that perhaps one of the people in that group that we haven't fully met yet is only interested in willing women.
Sure.
I mean, it's no spoiler.
Let's...
We all know that Negan has been cast. So
sure,
even if you don't read the comic books, Negan's been cast.
Let's talk about that for a second. So, where you're talking about, we earned what we took and stuff like that.
Right.
So
and the whole thing about kneeling and
right.
all of that.
Kneel before us and stuff. So let's dissect this. So I have no experience with the Saviors in the comic books. That's completely out for me. I only can go off of what I kind of interpret and see how things are going to go. So let me offer you an alternative for me as the TV viewer and
Okay.
everybody else out there who has no experience with the comics. Because so we're going to play good here. You've got the comic book experience, and I'll challenge you with TV thought.
You're actually believing that I'm going to remember as much of the comics as I should, but let's go for it.
Sure. So I'm gonna flip it completely upside down because like I said before, that the comic books aren't a roadmap; they're really just an overall guide. What if the Saviors isn't a separate group from the Wolves?
And I think that's possible. I mean, we talked about whether or not we've seen the last of the wolves.
Let me
Maybe
offer you
they're
this.
yeah.
What if this new group that came out here in the nice clothes and all this clean clothes? Think about it like a pirate ship. The captains and the officers of the ship live high on the hog, while the deck swabbers do all
Which
the
are the
hard
people
work.
who took Daryl captive. I mean, you look at them and you look at their presentation.
Right, and all of the wolves. So one of the key things that Dwight was talking about is that, you just kill in the name of somebody else so you can have a roof over their head and, I'm not who you think I am, Daryl being true and not me. He kept giving so much information about the group that he was formerly with. You come them, you give them everything. They'll take
Right.
everything for your safety. And then in the end, you just have your existence. It's obvious where the women are going with this.
Mm-hmm.
So what if the wolves are the deck swabbers and the potato peelers? And the reason the one wolf told Morgan at the campfire is, I want everything you have, every last drop. Don't even take another drink of your coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Because every last drop is payment for his safety. It's payment.
Very possible.
I'm linking these couple things together here. So every little bit counts. He needs everything. So when the wolves invaded Alexandria, they killed a lot, but they captured some of them. And when Carol had Morgan pretend tied up, some of them were like, "Oh, great, great find, great find." Talking about Morgan, great find. Why was Morgan so valuable? Why were the other ones
Oh.
okay to chop their arms and legs off? Because they were weak,
I was going to
captured.
say Morgan would be a great deck swabber.
You bet. He would be
Interesting.
great at digging trenches. He would be this because he's physically fit. He's not the woman standing on the side of the street smoking her cigarettes. It's very clear cut as who they were trying to capture and who they were just killing. So, again, when Morgan and Father Gabriel have one of the wolves knocked out, he wakes up. I talked about this. He said, "We're here to set you free. You don't belong
Which
here.
was a precursor to the Saviors.
We're here to set you free."
Interesting. Very interesting. That could be a good way to really meld those two groups and those storylines together.
Yeah, because at this point, you have to look at the show creators and say, we can't just keep doing the comics. We need to figure out ways to twist and bend everything. And I think that's how they're going to do this, is they're going to bring these two things together and make them one, where the saviors are the officers of the group. Because if you go back to the forest scene, where you don't see anybody, you only see them from, the
From the
waist
waist
up.
down, right?
That one guy, what was it, Wayne or Wade? Wade is what
Right.
his name was. He kept saying, "You're going to have to pay for the gas we used to come out here and get you." That was one of his comments when he was yelling to Dwight. "You're going to have to pay for our time. You're going to have to pay for our gas." It sounds like a wolf comment. You have to do this, which explains why the wolves wanted that camper so bad, that they wanted to kill Rick inside to get that camper, because how valuable would that camper be to
Oh.
bringing that back? That's why they don't have guns, because that's a currency. The wolves
And
had
that's
to give
why
everything away.
I was going to say that's also why they don't have guns, because who has the guns? The officers, not the grunts,
You bet.
I mean, for lack of a better descriptor.
So
Interesting.
that's kind of how I wanted to flip that around and offer a completely different perspective on, wait a second, this could just be one giant flip-flop here, and it is a completely different program.
Well,
So
but it still keeps the idea of there being that larger world outside of our group's world for them to explore. So it really
absolutely.
does, it ties everything together, but it also gives it a different twist, which is exactly what they've done all along.
I love it. I dig it. So see, are you starting to turn a little bit? You're starting
I
to
don't
turn there a
know.
bit?
I definitely like that thought. I still have some reservations about this particular episode, and we'll go into them. So, is that one of your goods,
It is
or is
now.
that a good ugly?
It was my good, because what my good was, the way this new group was put together, and they had a very clear-cut system on how things worked. Even
Yeah,
when the one guy fell into Daryl's trap and got bit, he came over, chopped the guy's arm off. Cool, calm, collected. Shows that he has time in the field. He's done his grunt work. He knows what happens on the front lines, and then he takes the watch off the cut hand.
I thought that was a
Whoop.
nice thing, and I also thought that okay, come on, let's just walk it off.
Yeah, and that just,
Really?
to me, that shows he's a General Patton in my mind.
Yeah.
That he's out there on the front lines. You're not dead. We chopped your arm off. Let's go back.
Get up, soldier. Keep moving.
Yep, it's done. It
Yeah.
happened. You want to lay here and die? Because I will kill you. Get up and move. And that, to me, that's exciting to see, because I hope this all works out to the way I want it to and the way I'm calling it, so everyone thinks I'm brilliant. So what's your
I,
good?
well, I was just
I know
thinking,
you
I'll
don't
go into
have
my good in
two.
a second here, but I just, boy, that could set them up as a very interesting counterpoint to our main group of survivors as well. They're going to be a really interesting mirror for one another.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree.
So, my good is, and I'm not shipping here, but I did think that the chemistry between Sasha and Abraham was really interesting. And I've got to tell you, initially, I did watch The Talking Dead, so initially I was like, oh my God, did I totally miss the scene where Abraham came on to Sasha? Did I completely miss that? Second time I watched, I was like, oh, okay. But I could see, even before I caught the lines, because I was somewhat distracted the first time I watched, that there was good chemistry between the two of them, and especially on Sasha's part, the actress who plays her just did a really nice job playing off of Abraham. So I guess that was kind of my overall good for that portion of the episode, and then definitely the whole idea of this new group. They were my other good. So you really covered that really well.
So it's funny. I'm not even going to elaborate on the relationship aspect, because that's in my bad ugly.
Well, good, and I'm glad that we'll talk about that a little more. I mean, I do want to say I'm definitely not shipping. One of the things that I did think was interesting, and I'm going to do it again because I can't quite get out of the world of the comics, but there's some parallels. It'll be interesting to see where they take it, and I'm just going to leave it at that. Like you said, people who read the comic books will know what we're talking about, and if not, that's fine. So I don't really have much else for good.
No, that's okay. Neither did I. But there's some
So,
details. There's some details that I have that are out there, but it's not. It doesn't really go in one of the categories. So we'll keep
we
going.
don't necessarily have to categorize. The other thing is we can talk about them as notes at the end if you want.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you bet.
guys, just doing a little bit of cleanup here. So, my big bad was that I felt like so much of what Daryl did in this episode was really sloppy and out of character. The scene that really killed it for me was when he was fumbling in the duffel bag to get the crossbow. And I'm sitting there looking at him, thinking about your prediction, actually, that Daryl Dixon is going to go this season. And I thought, I can't believe he's going to die this way. Because I can't believe that Daryl would waste time fumbling for the crossbow when he's got a knife on his hip, when there are rocks and sticks all around, and he's got a way to take this walker out. Or for heaven's sake, just get up and move out of the way until you've got something in your hand.
Yeah, that was kind of aggravating to me. He didn't have the knife. I'm assuming that Dwight took the knife.
I actually looked on
So
his hip at the end of the episode because I wasn't entirely sure that there was a knife in that
the sheath.
the sheath, but there actually was a hilt visible at the end of the episode.
Whoops.
Yeah,
it
so
was very,
maybe it was
like,
a continuity error, or maybe it really was just bad writing. But I just thought that having him fumble for that crossbow when actually the character that we know would have taken advantage of any means necessary.
Just get up and throw him down, and he would have stomped on his head. That's what Daryl Dixon would have done.
Exactly. So I felt like it was bad writing and out of character for that particular character.
So
how about you? Go ahead.
I agree that is my bad, a part of my bad. But
I was going to say I have a few other bads too, so go for it. You talk and then I'll talk again.
well, let me rebuttal your statement of bad writing out of character. Out of character, yes, but I believe this is intentional writing. In sports, we have an adage where if you play with bad people, you will get worse. You have been living in Alexandria. This goes back to Carl. Carl talking about we're going to lose our edge. We're going to lose this.
Yes.
We're not going to be as sharp. And that could not be more true of this season. Carl was right in last season about when he walked in and the kids were playing video games. No, we are going to lose our edge. And that's why he wanted to stay sharp. Because if you look at all the stupid rookie mistakes that we call it, the core cast,
right,
is they're failing. They're doing some stupid things. Whether that's Daryl trusting people twice, he is fumbling around for his weapons, Rick getting into the camper and not shutting the door or locking it, leaving it open for people to walk in and shoot him. All of these small things adding up huge. Glenn running into a dead-end alley and then just being like, oh, crap, we're dead.
Running into a dead-end alley with Nicholas in charge.
Yeah, with Nicholas in charge. No way. Because they're all, we got to give them a chance. Let's make them into something they're not. Let's do this. They're terrible. But let me coach them up. The apocalypse is not when you coach somebody up. You make a decision and move on from it. That stuff doesn't happen. So I will offer that rebuttal. And my main bad was that why are we not revealing the truth quicker? Daryl,
the truth about everybody.
Yeah, when Daryl is captured and he's like, I'm not who you think, you shut up, blah, 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 blah. And he's talking, look, are you talking about, he could have said, are you talking about the wolves? I don't have a W on my head.
Right.
They tried to kill my people. And then that would have, what do you mean, wolves? Who are the wolves? Or the grunts tried to kill you, something like that.
Right.
Something about that sort of effect. Why this whole charade? This guy is going to blow your brains out. Why this charade of, I can't reveal too much about Alexandria. I know why he's doing it. He's trying to protect Alexandria, but they haven't found it before. They're not exactly the greatest land nav people. Why are you not at least saying, look, dude, I get it, but I am not with the group you think. Let me tell you, let me say something. Like, I get it, but I don't. And it's kind of frustrating for me.
I felt like a lot of the motivations in this episode potentially ended up on the cutting room floor. I mean, I know that they have hours and hours and hours of tape and can't include every little moment in the final episode, in the final cut. But I just thought, okay, I'm not entirely sure that I understand Daryl's motivation for why he changed his mind about telling them about Alexandria when he did. I didn't entirely, I understood the revenge and I understood a little bit of the regression in terms of him demanding the carving that guy was working on in exchange for his pain and suffering to get the insulin back to them. But I just felt like there was so much more behind what people were thinking and doing that we didn't necessarily get. So that was actually one of my bads, kind of feeling like there was stuff that we were missing that was potentially filmed and cut.
Yeah, one of my wishes is that, like, when a movie comes out on DVD, they have the director's cut and it has all the additional footage built into the movie that don't make it on the big screen. I wish they did that with The Walking Dead.
I do too, because I think there's a lot of backstory.
Yeah. Greg Nicotero says they cut between like 20 and 40 minutes of every episode that you don't get to see. Why not just release some collector's edition for $10 extra and I'll buy it?
I would
see all
too.
that stuff.
Yeah.
I think everybody listening would. So my other bad is that Daryl is just a sap now. Like he is so
Yeah.
soft. He is such a character he rivals Carol for the biggest character transition. Because if you go back to season 1, Carol was battered and abused. Daryl was going to steal everything in the camp with Merle and leave. And now he is going back, risking his life to give back a complete stranger insulin that just took them hostage and was going to turn him over to people who had no idea who he was.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how this works. And that's where I again come around to Alexandria is making everybody dumber. It is
So
making them slower, it is making them dumber, and it is making them weaker.
the question is, will Daryl get his lesson? Has he gotten his lesson?
I think he has lots to talk about and learn with Aaron about
I'm
judging people.
glad that you said that because I really love Aaron, and I think, as I've said in the past, I think that character has so much to offer. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out between the two of them. I hope we see that.
I think we will. Just he didn't get to spend the right time with the group, because if you think about how Aaron made his decisions, they had the listening device, they had ways to, Aaron followed Rick's group for a week without making himself known. So he got to listen to all of their conversations. He got to hear about who they were and what they did.
Well, and they went out in pairs, so there was always someone to bounce ideas off of, to double check your perceptions with. And I love Daryl again, but I don't think he's necessarily the most intuitive or perceptive guy in the world. So, well, so one of my other bads, and I think as someone who's been in the military, you can speak to this, but I really kind of feel like the military walker locked up and safe from, Sasha and Abe were safe from him. They didn't have to kill him. They just observed him. I kind of felt like that's getting a little tired. I actually didn't like the way that was treated. And I felt like Abraham should have just taken him out of his misery. I don't know. It didn't feel respectful to me. It just kind of felt weird. And I was wondering also if you caught what was written on the whiteboard in the room that he was in. I didn't have a chance to freeze on that and really look at it. It was kind of a callback to the vet in the bathtub in the Governor episodes. The guy who tried to kill himself and was not successful.
Right.
But I felt like their handling of this guy it just wasn't good. And, then Abraham swiping his clothes, and it just was weird. Just had a weird feeling to it.
Sure. So I didn't see what the whiteboard said. Like I seen it, I tried to glance at it. It didn't stand out to me right off the bat. There's obviously some hitting mean to it because that's what they always do.
Right. There's nothing that's thrown away.
But I thought the reason they left him alive was because you have to be accountable. Everything is like this for a reason. That's why Sasha wouldn't let him just kill that walker that was on the sidewalk. Because if you kill that walker and there's fresh blood, then somebody knows you're in the area.
So that I can understand, because she said the thing about, not leaving breadcrumbs. And if you kill that walker, you have the potential to create trouble and draw more attention. But I think that a mercy kill of a walker who is locked up in a building,
But then, if somebody came in the door that wasn't Daryl and they had to run and hide, and they were just doing a clean sweep and they just seen fresh walker blood, they know they were in that building.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
I really didn't think of it, and that's why she didn't mark it with an X in a circle. She just wrote Dixon on the door.
Mm-hmm.
So the only person who knows Daryl's last name is them.
Right.
So you wouldn't pay much attention to someone's name written on the wall because you see that all over. But if something had an X by a door, you would probably check that door because somebody marked this for a reason with an X or a star.
Interesting. Very interesting.
That's kind of how I thought about it, just from a tactical perspective, trying to not leave a trace that even in a building, because if it's just ransacked, you don't know if it was ransacked now or later or 2 years ago. But if that walker's dead and it's
fresh looking,
then they were in here. They're in the building. Do a perimeter sweep of this building and let's find these people that are here.
Interesting. Okay. So what'd you think about Abe taking that jacket?
To me, that was the the final straw for their love right there, because Sasha is a sucker for a man in uniform. Because,
Oh, that's
Abraham was a
hilarious.
sergeant. Abraham was a sergeant, and he is trying to let his guard down. He is trying to take what she's saying, with a grain of salt. So he's like, all right, yeah, I'll be accountable, and I won't kill that guy. So I'm gonna have a little bit of fun. And he's kind of been flirting with her the whole time.
Yes, I
And then
agree.
he's like, yeah, hey, you dig a guy in uniform, look at me. And all she did was just smile at him. It's like, yep, that's it. This is going to go real bad for Rosita here.
Yeah.
Which that'll be interesting to see how that works out. The last time something like this happened was Tyrese back in the prison in the comic books.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Between him and Michonne and all that love triangle they had going on, it was completely different. Obviously different people, different time, different stuff, but this is what's really happening. To me,
but
I've
this
always said,
happened for Abraham in the comic book too.
Yeah. So what I always kind of envisioned the apocalypse would be, there would be more of this than anything else.
Well, it's funny that you say that because, again, I did watch The Talking Dead, and they had Michael Rooker on, he was interesting. But, they talked a lot about how they figured there would be more sex during the apocalypse, more people getting together. And I thought, not really. When you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have to have food and shelter before you even start thinking about stuff like that. So now, maybe the reason we're seeing all of these hookups happen now is that there is food and shelter. There are walls that keep people in and keep the walkers out, generally speaking. So maybe that's why we're starting to see more of this.
Could be.
I don't know. And the other thing is, I quite honestly think that it's what gets Abraham's blood pumping.
Yeah, he is a caveman. He is a typical dude.
I just look back to Self-Help, and I know there were some people who were offended by the scene where Abraham and Rosita were having sex and Eugene was watching, but I think that kind of stuff gets Abraham going. So I think definitely the edginess and the danger and the kind of picking at each other, he enjoys that.
Yeah, totally. I definitely believe it's a different connection, which leads us into My Ugly.
All right, because I'm headed to My Uglies too, so go for it.
Yeah, mine's a bad ugly, and I just didn't see the point in this. The whole Abraham Sasha love, totally not needed for me. Like, I get it that this is how she's getting him to break out of his shell, because personality-wise, she is the direct opposite of Rosita. Rosita was all about letting him rage out and letting him do his thing.
And making him happy.
Yeah, where Sasha's like, quit being a punk, dude. Why are you being weak, Like, you need to show some restraint. And then she made him see, like, no, look, if you kill that walker, they're going to know we're here. And she's making him understand why these things happen. And that's a new part of his brain unlocking, and he's getting it. And then he goes on a rock RPG excursion, and, he has his moment with that walker on the fence, and he rages out, and he gets it. And then he's like, yeah, I'm going to go have a smoke after that. And he finds that box of cigars, which, by the way, he, in IRL, in real life, he is a cigar fan, so that was pretty good for him. He gets to smoke on the job and enjoy his smoke and have a good day. So, those things like all kind of played together, and like you said, that's what gets him going. Is he had this revelation, he had this euphoric moment, and went and had a smoke, and he got it. I get it, man. I get it. And now he's kind of coming back to like a peacock to kind of strut in front of Sasha. That look at me. I'll strut my stuff now. I get it. Am I what you want now? Because, I think he's accepted the fact that, look, it's not going to get any better than what we have at Alexandria. He has no idea what's waiting for him back there. He has no idea. He thinks it's not going to get any better or worse. And if Rosita gets mad, oh well, not my problem.
And I loved what he said. So it's interesting, first of all, that they were my bad ugly as well. I didn't like the kind of sanctimonious lecturing back and forth between the two of them. But I loved what Abraham said about he wanted to really experience everything that he could in life until the cosmic Pete came with the unpredictable sword and slit his
Yeah,
throat.
he's
I thought that was a great callback to the end of last season. I think it does clearly show that he was pretty traumatized by Reg's death, which Michael Rooker disputes, and I disagree with Michael Rooker. But I overall, even though I thought they had good chemistry when the actor and actress were working together, I didn't feel like it was necessary either. I didn't get anything out of it.
right. But
But we're
everything
talking
happens
about
for a
it.
reason. Yeah,
And you're
well,
right.
everything happens for a reason. If you look in the grand scheme of characters who have been unaffected by issues, trauma, things in general, not Sasha, I'm sorry, Rosita has pretty much been unscathed through the whole lifespan of her career
Ah,
on here.
good point.
She's never had big drama. She's never had a big loss. She's never really had anything.
She's pretty
She's
quiet. She's played everything pretty flat.
she's strutted around in her hat and little booty shorts and has rocked it
Mm-hmm.
the whole time. And this might be the situation that starts her drama and starts to pick up on it. Because if they go back to Alexandria and everything's all cool and they're like, we'll just keep this on the down low, whatever, she starts noticing, suggestive winks and nods from Abraham to Sasha and is like, catches them in the act somewhere. And then that starts a whole different division in the group.
And how can you not notice it?
Sure.
I mean,
It'll be
it's
completely
really
different.
there. Yeah, it's really there. Well, so my good ugly was actually in the credits. So last week, remember when I said that they had directly linked Lauren Cohan's name to the watch, to Herschel's watch?
Yes.
This time, there's actually a lag. So you see the watch with no name associated with it. Then just as the watch is fading out, Lauren Cohan's name comes in.
Oh gosh, they are
So
milking this thing.
they are, man. So Stephen Yeun's name is still not in the credits this week, but they really subtly changed the way that they handled the watch, which was previously associated with his name. So I thought that was a good ugly.
Side note, I'm curious as to find out what the deal with timepieces are in the grand story here. If you go all the way back, I want to know what Kirkman's thoughts are with clocks.
Because you remember Dale talking about the watch and the try, spend, conquer.
Yeah, I mean, Rick has always had a watch, and he gives his watch to Carol, and everything, there's a watch, and everything is important. And even when Wade chopped the guy's arm off, took the watch.
He took his watch. And and you're right, there's clocks too. I mean, I find myself looking for little things like I know the other podcasters have pointed out, oh, well, the small hand was on the season number and the big hand was on the episode number, or those kinds of things. So there's always something with watches and clocks. I agree.
I don't have any more uglies. That was really kind of it.
So I had a good, bad, ugly, and it doesn't really fit in either category because there's aspects of both, but I think the way that they're dragging out Glenn is interesting. I don't have any big beef about it. People are definitely agonizing over it.
Yeah, I don't. I'm the same way. I don't really have a yes or a no for this. I don't care because it would be different if they kept going with the main storyline without him, but they're bringing everybody together. So, next week, everybody's coming home. Now everybody is going to be at the same point and the same time. Now are we going to address this issue?
So I think you probably saw on Facebook, I asked people, when they thought that we would see a wrap up for Glenn's story, if we got one at all. And I do think that our storytellers like to have no loose ends. And most people agree that we're probably going to find out about Glenn at the mid-season finale.
Yeah.
Which I think you and I are pretty much in agreement there, too.
Yeah, we'll hear from him pretty soon. 2 more weeks to go, but it will be one of it'll be in the last episode. I think we'll get some direction this next one, but we'll see the chewed remains of Glenn Rhee.
So part of my good / bad ugly was now I have to go to my notes. Isn't that funny? I lost it. Oh, the voice on the radio.
All right,
So
so
was
that
it
was my
it
big
Glenn?
spoiler.
Yeah.
Nope.
And so
No
I've
way.
heard, a lot of different. I've heard that it was Rick. I've heard that it was Glenn. I've heard that it was the guy that captured Daryl and ultimately stole Daryl's bike. I've heard a lot of different theories, so I'm interested to know what you think.
All right. So my thing here, this is one of my afterthoughts, is that they have been tracked and followed this entire time. Everything.
You said that on Facebook, didn't you? That the
Yeah.
wolves had tracked them the entire time. I thought that was a very astute observation.
Yeah. So let's go through the series of events. When they first went out to do a dry run on how to deal with the walkers and the quarry, they were all communicating through radio. Everybody in the process had it. When the saviors arrived, they had a radio.
Yeah.
These are 11 channel handheld radios. Anybody on the channel in the area can get it. And all that it takes is your base scanner that will just that. It scans all frequencies, minimal energy, sits there and rotates, and it only makes a sound if somebody chimes in. So imagine that you were sitting there, and in your base command, all of a sudden on channel 7, these people start talking about, all right, you're going to go up, and they were very specific. You're going to go, I'm just going to use these make-up numbers. You're going to go up Highway 20. You're going to turn down Spooner Street, and you're going to turn up Lefty Lane, and then you're going to go 15 miles this way, and you're going to turn on Highway 3, and you're going to go south, and then you're going to come back and make a big circle. And that's how
the herd's going to keep going.
And the herd's going to keep on going. So you just hear this like, oh my God, there is a civilization around here somewhere. Here's what they're going to do. So they send their scouts out. And all right, here we go. And we don't know if Alexandria has been watched because it's not that hard. We have to wait for a moment of weakness. And they just keep sitting here and wait and say, wow, half of the town's population is gone. It's all the fighters. It's all the strong people. Now's our opportunity to go on Alexandria. Here's what they're getting ready for. So the thing that sold me on this was the ambush. As Daryl and Sasha and Abraham are driving through, they get randomly ambushed, and they kind of go, and it falls apart. And, she's like, how would, we just drove through an ambush. He goes, no, there were too many people. They were waiting for someone specific.
And he's thinking it's the captors, Daryl's captors, but I think you might be right. I think someone specific was our group.
Was them. You bet it was.
So then the question
was our group.
Then the question is, that voice that's asking for help, is that actually someone asking for help, or is it a fake out? Are they trying to draw our group out?
They are A, trying to draw the group out, or 2, letting them know that we're listening. Because I didn't think, and this is just me, when I watched it, I didn't think he said help. I thought the voice on the radio said no. I could totally be wrong.
It sounded like help to me. But
yeah, I mean, I could totally be wrong because when I heard no, that's what put me on this whole thought process.
Interesting.
Because what a way, and I'm wrong. I mean, it's come out and said that voice. If it was someone that said no, it would have been different. But so they said help. But how fun would it have been to screw? I mean, if you want to terrorize somebody, you think you're alone in your community. Rick, is everything okay?
No.
Whose voice was that? And they just.
But I also think that asking for help is the perfect way to draw out our group because they're all going to rush for each other.
And you've just said their name. I'm looking for Rick. Yeah, I'm here. Rick's hurt. I was passing through the area.
Right.
Over, blah 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 blah. We're here. Come help. And
right, because there's been
another ambush.
There's been nothing on the radio but chatter. Daryl, you there? Sasha, you there? Abraham, you there? Rick, you there? Oh, good point.
Mm-hmm. So I definitely think it is the group, the bad guys who, hey, they're 11 channel radios, man. Anybody can get them. And I think that's how this is going to go.
And it's a great way to play with the fans and to keep us in suspense because there are definitely people hoping and talking about it being Glenn.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it actually would be a very convenient way for them to reintroduce Glenn into the storyline by having him ask for help. So, what a great way, again, just to get the fans talking and to get the fans speculating.
Yeah, I just refuse to acknowledge that it's Glenn. It can't be Glenn. And if it is, it's his last breaths of air.
I think that, if it is Glenn, I agree. I think he's asking for help. People are going to get drawn out and they're going to find dead Glenn. But I think your theory is interesting. I like the idea of it being a misdirection. I think it very well could be.
It'll be awesome.
It's just as viable an option as anything else.
Well, if nothing else, it'll give our listeners something to think about and really kind of kick those creative juices and get that interaction with our listeners to really kind of tell me, Brian, you're crazy, you're ridiculous, or dang, dude, that was a pretty unique way to think about things. So I really like how this is going.
So, a couple more things before we do listener feedback and wrap it up. I really, really liked the images of Abraham being alone in that cityscape. And they really had me on edge because, again, I can't divorce myself from the world of the comics. So it was very nerve-wracking watching Abraham just casually move through that cityscape. And
all I kept thinking about was when Carol and Daryl were on the bridge. I'm like, you're an idiot.
Oh, how funny. Well, the other thing I thought is just because that Walker who had the RPG dropped off, just because that RPG slit through his chest, doesn't mean he's gone.
Yeah, very true.
He didn't get it to the head, so...
That was kind of a cheesy moment where it's like, oh, she just talked to him. He's been there for how long? How has nobody else found these RPGs?
They're going to do something fun with those, I think. Someone suggested that the RPGs and the tanker were going to be the death of the Walker herd, which I think is an interesting concept.
Yeah, I think they talked about that part in the forest specifically for a reason. Why are these all burned here? We did this, and we set this one tanker truck on fire, and then Daryl finds the other hidden tanker truck, which, whatever. I'm not sure how that worked out, but it did. And I think that's how they're going to lure the rest of the herd away is they're going to rev it up. They're going to drive it kind of down the road a little bit.
And they're going to light it up.
Yep, they're done.
Yeah. So, quick thing about Norman Reedus. I listened to his most recent interview at Walker Stalker Con Atlanta. And I thought it was really interesting. He talked about really fighting to take Daryl in a more realistic direction, and he kind of dissed the whole idea of Daryl having a bike and Daryl having a crossbow, and was talking about how that's just kind of over the top. And I thought it was really interesting that his bike and his crossbow both disappeared in this episode.
That is true.
I
got nothing left for this episode.
Yeah,
to me, it's kind of one and done.
So I think we can look at some listener feedback. I'm going to steal my favorite one right away, which is the rating that Thomas O'Mara gave this episode on our Facebook page. He said he gives it 4 out of 5 ass itch and loose ends. Actually, I rated it a little lower. I gave it 3 out of 5 ass itch and loose ends, which is really low for me. I don't think I've ever given an episode a 3.
Yeah, you tend to rate on the high end here.
I do. I tend to rate on the very high side.
Well, so what is your official rating then?
So I'm giving it 3 out of 5. Ass itch and loose ends.
I am going to give it a 4, 4.5 left chopped off.
Wow. Very good.
And I know I'm very different here, but it was such a good episode for details and thoughts. Like, I haven't really thought this deep about an episode very much because I went down that rabbit hole with the connections of the groups and how this is playing in the bigger picture of them being tracked this whole time. How devastating will it be because the wolves knew where Alexandria was. So like, hey, there's this place. Let's scout it out for a while. And they've been scouting it for a couple of days, and then they learn, oh man, they're going to go on this big run. Because somebody could have easily hopped over, walked up that arm, hopped in there, and been inside the town for a week, and nobody would have known.
Oh, man. Really good. Well, and I've got to tell you, I love that our views were pretty opposite on this episode, because that's one of the things that I always loved about listening to Jeff and Kirk, is that they didn't intentionally keep their views very opposite. They just had very different takes on things. And I think that's healthy for the podcast. So,
you
good.
Bet. One more feedback here. Gijo or Yiyo Puthia, I want a refund for all the Sasha Abraham stuff. The Daryl part was awesome. I loved the burnt forest setting, made everything so eerie. I wonder where we will see those two double crossers again. We will. We will because Daryl wants his crossbow back, and Daryl wants his motorcycle back. So here's the other thing. That motorcycle's got to break down at some point, because that is a custom-built thing, top to bottom. So it's not going to run like a normal motorcycle. You might have to drain the fuel out of the line every time so it doesn't flood. You might have to do a couple of different things. So it'll be curious.
Yeah, the very clean, rational members of that new group looked like they could handle it. I don't know that the couple that held Daryl up could handle a bike breaking down on them. So,
well, and I wonder if they're going to drive into Alexandria. Like, hey, kind of like how, think of Terminus when Rick was there and he's seen, the watch and Glenn's riot gear and the poncho, and he's seen all these things.
Yes.
And then he made a reaction. So this group comes like, whoa, what is this? Oh, we've been on the road for weeks. My motorcycle needs gas. And Rick's like, come on in. And then they walk in and boom, guns in their face. Like, where'd you get that bike? What do you mean, man? We've had it. No, you have not. You've got one more chance, or I'm going to blow your brain out right now. So there's always those things, but it'll be cool.
So a little bit of feedback about last week. I feel like I should take this one. April Scott said, please let the head trauma go. This isn't Grey's Anatomy. They're not going to have a subplot involving a B-list cast member's head injury. And that's fair. I will let the head trauma go. I am going to tick April off a little bit and say that I'm not totally convinced with the whole portrayal of diabetes in this episode, but I'll let that go too.
That's funny. Well, Jen says, yay, thanks for the great podcast. She's now very worried for Morgantello. Glad the name stuck. I hope he doesn't run into Enid. She eats turtles. Bazam.
And then finally, Laura Willie Swink, who is great about giving us some feedback, said, great podcast, Brian and Diane. The hot dams were courtesy of Dr. Denise. So I was glad to get an explanation for where the hot dam rating came from.
All right. Well, hey, I think we're rocking and rolling here. I think this is working out great. And I'm really liking how we definitely play the yin and yang on each other's thoughts. Because everything that you have liked, I have hated. Completely vice versa.
Good. Well, we're going to keep doing that.
All right. Sounds good to me.
So I hope you have a great week. I hope all the fans have a great week. And we will see you next Monday.
Remember to take it one dead day at a time.